Hello, and welcome to this podcast for CARDA, the Creative Aging and Development Agency. My name's Elizabeth Lynch, and with Arti Prasha, I'm the co-chair of the organisation. This podcast is an interview with Greta Mendez. Greta is a dancer, a choreographer, a movement and theatre director, and a carnivalist. She's a freelance artist who focuses on new and experimental work, but also draws on and re-examines traditional forms and ritual. Today, we will be hearing her share her thoughts on our theme for this podcast series, which is radical acts of creative aging. CARDA has described creativity as thinking by doing, and radical as something that makes your heart beat faster. CARDA is exploring what radical creativity and aging is from a wide range of perspectives. And today I'm delighted that Greta has joined us. Now, Greta, we're going to ask a series of questions and we'll find out a lot more about your absolutely fascinating career. But first of all, let's just go back to the beginning. What motivated you to have a creative career, and how has this motivation changed over time?
Well, to be very honest, I didn't even think of having a creative career. That just came to me. Dance, I started life as a dancer in my creative aspect, but I lived in a tiny village called Fyzabad in Trinidad and Tobago. I grew up in the time when there was no television or nothing. So creativity as an artist, that didn't enter my landscape at all. But while walking through the school, as a 10-year-old, I think I was, the school's inspector for physical education said, "This little girl looks like she can dance." And that was my entry point. Her name was Eileen McSween, to be precise. And I started dancing at the age of 10. And I found the most amazing world. That's why it's imperative and it's fundamental to me to always have dance in there, because dance saved my life, because I was a very unhappy child and neglected quite a bit. But so I entered the dance. I was never, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not a dancer. I enter dance and find out what's in the dance, inside of that. So, and that's my entry point. And it was, and then I made the very radical move to leave Trinidad, because I had developed to such a stage, and left Trinidad so I can learn more, see more, and then go back to Trinidad with greater knowledge, she says. I think that answers the question, does it?
Yes, how has this motivation changed over time? This impulse to dance?
The motivation and the imperative in my soul hasn't changed. I am only truly happy when I dance. But how it has changed is that I forgot somewhere in my journey, but I know exactly when, I forgot what my imperative was, what was essential for me and my growth as a creative being, and got involved in the social politics of being in England and Europe, because the problems you have here, I would not have encountered it in Trinidad. The level of racism and the marginalization of Black dancers in contemporary dance, because at that period there were no contemporary Black dance companies, and people tend to forget that. And there were African groups and stuff like this, but there was no, and it was said that we couldn't do contemporary dance. Yeah, that. So we set out with the brilliant Nassim Khan. You know Nassim Khan?
Yes.
And to create a company that will address all these things that kept us on the margins. And so we started MAAS Movers, that started the contemporary dance, which is actually fed, according to Dick Matchett. He said, had it not been for that, we wouldn't have what we have now. And of course, you know, so I had to stop my own personal development, and actually focus on that and develop, because I ended up directing the company and focus on that. And I think by the time I came back to my own journey, one of the things that's central to what we are saying, there's a thing called aging. So although, one was looking 18 on the outside, the aging thing is going on the inside. Mm-hmm. The clock is ticking, the biology is happening. So therefore, by the time I began to focus on me and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to say, my physical state had changed radically. My body decided, and remember, it's dance we're talking about. Yes. Dance. So your body is crucial, is fundamental to it. And my body had become this thing that I no longer knew or recognized. Suddenly it was just bloating out. I mean, like bloating. It didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what I did. It was, excuse my language, was saying, excuse me, you have worked me so hard for so many years. I am not doing anything you say. So therefore, it sent me into a downward spiral because no matter how much I tried to come up, my body was not responding. So when you send me this stuff, I'm thinking radical. My body did the radical move. It didn't matter what my head was telling it. It's going, I am exhausted. You have worked me to the nth degree. I ain't doing nothing you say. And so it has changed.
So maybe the next question is, interestingly, following on from that very provocative account, do you consciously challenge your own internalized ageism in your creative practice, and what inspires you to do this? Because you have not stopped.
Well, actually, I had to go through an indulgence, which you quote somewhere there. It was an interesting shift because at some point I had to accept. I went to classes. As you know, I'm a dancer, so we hardly eat anything. So it wasn't diet. It wasn't whatever. And so suddenly, from having a cardboard, very flat tummy, I didn't used to have breasts. I had breast and belly. And I had to do the radical move and going, okay, you can't change this. No matter what you do, it's not changing. This is what you have. You have a big belly. I prefer the word tummy or belly. I'm not sure the dynamics of that right now. You look like a Botticelli woman because all the voluptuousness. You're going to put that body back on stage because you love to dance. You love to express social issues. And you're going to say, this is who I am now. I'm no longer that lithe, athletic, could do split jetties and all of that. This is what you have. This is what sometimes some women's bodies develop too, and no matter what, I know they're going on about fat. I am not overeating. I know that. So I did this work called Indulgence. And I featured this woman, this character called Madame Glow, and anything could come out of her mouth. But because all my work is actually kind of also rooted in politics, in colonial politics, I had to bring in politics. So I used the beauty industry, and I was actually, a lot of the text, you will see political quotes, like I would say, to that I was using, because there was a time where they were telling you, glow girl, go. If I use this cream, it will precision target. It will precision target. It will precision target. It will be just as good as the bombs that they're dropping on Afghanistan. Yeah, it will wipe it out, because I was very much against it. So I was linking in stuff, so it wasn't overtly, but it was there. And stripped myself, not totally naked, but lifted and showed my breast and my fat tummy and go, okay, fine. And that was a point in terms of a radical move that I made. And I performed it, as you said, at the Albany at Riverside Studios. I did it in Delhi. I did
Oh,
bits of it in Trinidad.
yeah.
Yeah, I did it in Delhi. Although in Delhi, which I thought was very interesting, they asked me not to take my top, not to show my. I go, but Indian women, they have these beautiful tummies that they wrap around in their saris. And it's out. And she was like, the director, producer was going, no, 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 you cannot. So eventually I surrendered. So that is where I made a radical,
Mm,
and I had to be very brave in a dance world
yes.
to show my floppy belly because it wasn't firm either. It was just, I mean, really like a Botticelli's woman, those big voluptuous ones they have, and that was a radical shift. Yeah,
So
I think
now,
I. Uh-huh,
after those experiences, what does
uh-huh.
radical creative aging mean to you?
Well, it's I'm in a bit of a no man's land at the moment. I don't know if it's coming out of COVID, the effects COVID had on me, because although I was saying that I couldn't fit, I was very, very flexible. I could move like people would look at me
Oh,
and think, oh my God. And then suddenly I start moving and go, my God, look how she's moving that voluptuous or fat or whatever body. But COVID, something has gone in a third dimension, and maybe I'm in an incubation period because I can't find the next shift,
wow.
you know, um, of what I do. Am I just going to surrender to the fact that my physicality, I was saying to somebody the other day, it felt and it feels like the dance has left my body.
Wow.
My dance is gone. Um, and therefore, if my dance is gone, and I don't mean to be tragic with this at all, I then question what use I am on the planet. Because it's through my dance I was able to tell stories, not personal stories all the time. The first time I think I did a real personal story was 3 or 4 years ago, when I did that stuff about my father and the whole issue of identity. Because what am I? Who am I? This, mixed race, biracial, all this nonsense. Um, and I maybe am in a period of of forced, because this radical thing is very interesting, because biology impacts so much. If I was a writer, it would be different. If I
Mm-hmm.
was a painter,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but the body and what it is doing, despite what I am doing, forces you. So do I find new ways, which maybe that's the period I'm in, because there's sometimes you have to be still, you have to do nothing. It's almost like it is an incubation period, and maybe something truly radical, because I should be having another radical shift, like when I did indulgence, when
Mm-hmm.
I dealt with the fact and I questioned the whole beauty industry business, and that was a very good piece which needed to tour and all of that. But somehow I never have the managers around me to help me, take it everywhere. Um, and I think I'm hoping that's what it is, that I'm in an, because it's the first time in my life I haven't had a real good creative idea. And I don't like to just do work for doing work's sake.
Sure.
Um, you know, I could do that.
Mm.
But what am I saying? How is it affecting the society within which I live? Because I never do work totally for myself. I
Mm.
have to look at the society within which I live.
Mm.
Yeah. How can I do something that reflects the fear? Well, I am fearful anyway, the loss of hope that a lot of us feel because of the current situation we are in globally. How do I reflect that loss? That loss of hope, you think, what is shifting? You hear in the Caribbean, they're going, well, we could be taken over as well, if this shift happens.
Mm-hmm.
So so I am most probably in the best state I could be, or I'm in the worst state I could be, because it's the first time since as a 10-year-old I haven't had some radical idea or what a piece of work I could do, because I've had things like from coffee beans to disinfectant, looking at the thing of coming out of a colonial Trinidadian colonial experience, coming into the colonizer's world. Yeah. And this is the world that colonized us. But this world that we were sold, that was, made of gold and silver or whatever, suddenly realize, no, it isn't. It's a world that is disinfected. That's why I called it from coffee beans to disinfectant. And strange enough, I got that walking through Covent Garden. I was walking down Monmouth Street, I think it was, and this incredible smell of ground coffee from a coffee shop was just coming, and I walked right into this disinfectant. So it's
But listening to you,
yeah.
Greta, this is off script, but you talk about hope and how can we be hopeful at the moment? And you talk about the impact of colonization, the long
Yeah.
trail, the legacy.
Mm.
I know from talking to others, much younger people, that you have
Yeah.
been an inspiration and somebody that they look up to. So
Mm.
is that maybe, is it with our younger people that you can move, get out of, make this shift for yourself and continue to inspire them to think radically, creatively, differently?
But you see, that is where I tell myself off. There are two moves, there are moves you make in your life that you did in one minute, and it affects your whole life. Because I've been teaching, I've been in the background teaching and motivating young people for quite a few years now. But I've done it in with actors. And so I have been teaching, I have been motivating, and I ended up feeling very, very burnt out, very angry, because of course it's a constant taking. So I have been doing it, but I've been doing it with actors, and I haven't been doing it with dancers, but I've been working with young people. Few people know there's a big agency now called IDSA. The whole system that they put on was taken from a summer school I used to run for Talawa Theatre Company.
Oh.
And he took that same model and he created a school using that. Now he has credited me. I mean, strange enough, long ago, that's what you get paid for. But out of that, and I have to look at things like that, out of that came the John Boyegas, the Letitia Wrights, all those people who are in Hollywood now, Idris, Damson Idris, that created and gave them. Now they are millionaires, by the way. So I have done, and I think I'm going, and that's why I started. My voice is going. And I started for the first time to look at myself because I haven't looked at myself.
Yes.
I challenge everybody, I push everybody, but I don't do Greta. I run away from her.
So this is a really interesting point about doing something for yourself, but also you're saying you're running away from her. So maybe we'll come back to that. But if you were to write a radical creative aging manifesto, who would you write it for? And what would your first call to action be?
No, that one, I found difficult because it's summarizing it. My call to action, strange enough, is still with those young people, because in a way that is the future. And they're developing and they will change, and the world is changing drastically. what I could have lived on the dole. I don't know if you remember the dole. A lot of us as artists lived on the dole and created amazing work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that now. So any young person, any kind of young person, and the Arts Council funding is changing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think anything I would right now is actually trying to focus on how we could set the young ones coming up on a healthy path, because I think for too long the creative industry for us on the ground, us who doing the work, was kind of unhealthy. We weren't very well paid. We weren't very well fed. We did work in nasty, stinking studios. We did work at midnight, when people go on. And it's how you create, or I can write something that sets out a path that the young ones come out now would not be burnt out like I was in your 30s, because that should be you should be at the zenith. So how do you create a system, an industry to guide young people that when you reach my age, you're not afraid that you don't have enough money to live out the rest of your life?
Mm.
Because the world is changing. There was a time I remember, God, I'm old. I'm very old, actually.
How old is
When,
very old, Greta?
very old. I remember when I was growing up, teachers and doctors and
Mm.
people, people fed them, they took pride in them. You can't get any of that support now.
Mm.
So young people coming up in the creative industry is to also look that I love it. I'm passionate about it. But I was talking to my goddaughter the other day who wants to dance. But it isn't my goddaughter's sister.
Mm.
And I was saying to her father, yeah, celebrate and encourage her passion as a dancer,
Mm.
but also let her develop her other artistic potentials. Be a writer, be a songwriter. So because it's about looking at how you sustain your creativity so that when you reach senior years, you're not scared of the fact that you don't have enough resources to celebrate the rest of your life and all that you have done, to be very honest. Yeah. So you don't end up feeling like, sometimes I sit down and go, what have I done? What should have I done? Because it's not reflected in anything I have. I don't own my house. I don't own a car. I don't have a bank account, because my passion for the art,
Mm.
for dance,
Mm.
my passion to encourage people to celebrate other people's talent, to bring other people's talent, to neglect oneself is not good. So if there's one thing I always say to my students, though, is don't neglect yourself.
Mm.
You've got to feed yourself as well. You've got to take moments away for yourself. It's not selfish. I was brought up to believe anything you did where you focused on yourself was selfish.
Mm-hmm.
That, although I think the young people are understanding that more and more now, it is not selfish to say no. I cannot do that.
Mm.
You know. Oh, Bridget, but we have this. No, I cannot. I'm too tired. You get up and you go. You break your wrist because you're so exhausted.
Mm.
Nobody helps you to the hospital. You have an operation.
Mm.
So I think for the future, when I don't do it in the future, I do it now. Anybody I'm teaching. And a lot of young people, which I kind of disturbed me slightly, was that a lot of young people are going into dance and going and making companies right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying to them, no, don't do that. develop your dance first, develop your choreography first, because running a company is so much work. So it's how, and I have done it in terms of everybody I work with, to celebrate yourself, like yourself. And I think the industry in some ways, because I recently worked with a wonderful woman called Alexandrina Hensley, and she, because I was ill at the time, and she supported me through that, which was a shock to my system because I hadn't, in our sector, had so much, because they would not move. And she supported me through that. Never made me feel guilty that I couldn't, yeah? So because there's a thing called biology, that's your radical move on the current there. And unless you have taken good care of yourself in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, it comes back to bite you. And that's, for me, is looking at how you develop your foundation. It is a foundation, you said, isn't it, in your script?
Yeah.
How that those years are crucial so that you have a very as healthy as possible, because genetics is genetics, right? It could still come and bite you, but how you end up having a healthy, creative life in your senior years. And I always said, if I had developed, because I do like writing, if I had developed my writing skill, I would be happier, because at least I'd be having, an output. So I think anybody in any creative field is to develop because in actual fact, none of us are one-dimensional in our creativity.
Oh, yeah.
And so therefore to focus on one thing, like I did, and cast everything else aside. But in a way I didn't, because I choreographed and all of that.
Yeah.
So I mustn't be too hard on myself.
No, you mustn't.
But
yeah, a good point
what I mean?
about care and self-care, care for others,
Yeah.
looking after yourself. The image is suffering from, I think, a poor signal, Greta. So I'm worried that it's come back now. But I think that
Because I'm
we've
okay. Am I there?
we're fine. We've come to the end of our time allowance, but that was super. You've raised so many issues there. I'm sure there's going to be lots of comment. And as you know, we're going to make this recording into a podcast and a fanzine. So we will be doing some editing on the interview as well. But you've given us so much food for thought. Thank you. Thank you so much. Would you like to have the last word?
No, I always have the last word. So this time, all I'm saying is I hope, that's what we have to live by, that things will get better. And we'll hope. Although I don't particularly like that word now that I'm saying it, is that how we do a radical shift. What a radical move is needed right now. A radical move, because we need it.
Yeah. I mean,
we definitely. I'm not going to go on stage and do all the plonksy dance things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's time for something seriously, a radical shift. And I think some of the young people might be there. It would be interesting to see what they do at Notting Hill Carnival.
Yes.
If they make any kind of statements, anybody designs anything radical, I doubt it, but I mustn't be a pessimist. But anyway, so thank you very much for thinking of me, Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you, Greta. Really interesting. Thank you so much.